Hello and welcome back to Blue Tinted Glasses. Today is something new. We have what I've called the Foxes Den. So this is a panel show debate, although I'm not sure there's going to be much debating today, really. But we're going to discuss all types of different things, and these are the lovely people I have. Everyone will know who's on screen. So I'll start with Josh, mate. How are you doing?
Not too bad. Some good news yesterday, probably our first win of the season. So yeah, I'm not too bad, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. You're right there, actually. First win of the season. Yeah, I totally agree. Anil, over to you. I mean, we spoke last night. I love the T-shirt, by the way. How are you doing?
Well, I was going to say, this T-shirt only comes out on very special occasions. I think I've worn it about 4 times, but I thought getting off PSR, if we have, is well worth it. So I'm doing good on this fine day.
Lovely stuff, mate. Ash, over to you, mate. I mean, we've known each other kind of for a couple of years now, obviously through Dan Potts. Have you been on Dan's channel recently? Were you on it last week? Am I right in saying?
Yeah, I'm back on the Thursday slot now on the Football's 12th Man with all the guys that are dangling down the bottom of the table, the same as me.
Well, you'll have a lot more to brag about this week.
Oh yes,
I think.
I can't wait.
Lovely stuff. Right, so let's get into it. Obviously, the latest news, the main news everyone's talking about is PSR. Now, before we start talking about it, I've got a funny video to show. I don't know if you're all aware of Forest Fan TV. I asked him to actually give me his thoughts. I was going to use it in a different video to give his thoughts on the PSR situation. He sent me a video, so I'm going to play that now, and then we can talk about it. So this is rather funny. So yeah, brace yourself for this.
Yes, Lux, how's it going, bro? It's Wolfie here from Forest Fan TV, and if you asked for my thoughts on the way you've scumbagged yourselves out of PSR, I've seen you all doing your parties. Oh, we buy who we want. Been there, done that, mate. And we have the t-shirt because we stayed up. But if you want to know how I feel about it, well, it's quite simple, isn't it? This is OJ Simpson settings. If the glove don't fit, you must acquit. And fair play to you guys for doing that, because the Premier League is corrupt to the core. They've got it in for Forest. They've got it in for Everton. For you guys, not so much. But how do I feel about this? I'm quite happy for you guys, because you can't hide behind your PSR excuse when you get relegated. Cooper hasn't got that excuse anymore. If you're going to stay up, you're going to have to do it on the pitch. But I also heard that Nick DeMarco has basically granted you between 7 and 10 points from what he saves on the deduction, which is what, about 3 wins? And I need to ask you guys this question, and I really want to know the answer to this. Who do you think ends up on more points? Now, I'm not talking about Forest versus Leicester. We all know that Forest will finish ahead of you in the table. I'm talking about Nick DeMarco versus Steve Cooper. Because he's got himself 3 wins in Nick DeMarco, and Cooper's not off the board yet. And I think Nick DeMarco ends up with more wins. Scary thought, huh? What do you think? I'm dying to know the answer. Come on, you Reds.
Sure, mate. Come on. I could not believe it when I saw that. So, yeah, obviously that is Wolfie from Forest Fan TV. He sent me that video, and I thought I had to play it just to get his thoughts on the whole PSR situation. Obviously, they have been charged. They had points last season. Anil, mate, over to you. I know, obviously, Wolfie's joking a little bit there, but do you want to answer his question? Who's going to have more points, Steve Cooper or Nick DeMarco?
I won't answer that question yet, but you know what? I got a little chant some of us are working on that I think will sum it up. And it goes a bit like this. It goes, Nick DeMarco's magic, he wears magic hat. They said the point deduction, he wasn't having that. He found there was a loophole, a problem with the rules. But Everton and Forest, well, both got played for fools. Oh, Nick DeMarco. And we can keep on going. So, I think he's just getting salty. He's going for the engagement clicks. What I would say, you said this to me yesterday, which I agree, which is that even if Cooper does rubbish, I think the club will just bin him and bring someone else in, because now they know they've got a chance of staying up. And so really what it comes down to is how good is the squad. And even though we only have 1 point from the 3 games, I personally have been reasonably impressed. And I think some of those new signings that came in, especially in the last game, Bilal, looked pretty good. So yeah, maybe Cooper's not the best, but you can always get rid of your manager. Aston Villa looked like they were going to get relegated a few seasons ago, brought in Unai Emery. The rest is history.
Yeah, absolutely. Ash, What's your initial kind of reaction then to the news we got last night? I know you messaged me very excited, and I was like, I was telling Neil I was at Harvester in Loughborough and I had to rush. I got my car quickly, got back to Leicester so I could do a live with Neil. But yeah, what are your thoughts on it all, mate?
I'm buzzing. Obviously there's a lot of clubs that are very salty with what's gone on. But at the end of the day, get better lawyers. Everyone's been bashing Rudkin and Whelan, and they've obviously been locked in a room with this lawyer sussing this out. So, well done. And now it's going to be on the football pitch where it's won and lost, isn't it? Which is what football's about. Nobody's stopping Man City spending. Nobody's stopping Chelsea spending. Nobody's stopping all the big teams spending. Why can't we spend? If our owners want to put money into the club, then let them do it. And if we want to find loopholes into their badly drafted contracts, then carry on.
Yeah. What about you, Josh, mate? What you think? What because I've seen it. A majority of Leicester fans are buzzing and they're like kind of laughing in the faces of Leeds fans and Everton fans and Forest fans and all of this. But I've seen some Leicester fans kind of say, no, we shouldn't be celebrating this. And, we should just be count our lucky stars that we're off the hook, but we should still be holding the board to account for putting us in the position in the first place. What are you thinking?
I think we could do that in a few weeks maybe, but I think right now we should just celebrate because we've got 1 point on the board. Like I said, it's basically like 6 or 9 points gained in a day. So I think we should be happy. Obviously, there's a longer issue in terms of PSR or whatnot in the whole Premier League, but for Leicester right now, I think we've got to be happy with it, surely.
Yeah, absolutely. Anil, Rudkin still need to go, mate, even though we hired...
Maybe, but you know what? I've been thinking about this. It's kind of funny, right? Firstly, with Leicester, let's be honest, in terms of like entertainment, it's like a soap opera, isn't it? It's some clubs are just properly dull, just like, isn't it? Palace are just like 12, 12, 12, 12, 12. With Leicester, it's like you can win the league or get relegated, you can get away with murder, literally, whatever. And why is that? It's quite interesting. And so, speaking of Rodkin, and it might not just be him, but I wonder if some of the people, like the C-level sweet people in King Power, are they like autistic, like Rain Man? It's like they can multiply 2 5-digit numbers in their head in 2 seconds, but they can't tie their shoelaces. And so that's why with Leicester, you get this entertaining thing that like, it's like almost like in my head, I could see us both qualify for Europe or break Derby's points record at the same time. It's like it's a coin flip. And you could say that is not a good place to be as a fan, but it does actually make it somewhat entertaining. Because if you think about it, football's just like a break from the regular life sort of thing. So, well, look, Rudkin is a lucky boy, let's be honest with you. And I think most businesses, if you'd have got relegated, you would have been sacked for that probably. But I suppose you could say, yeah, but I got us promoted and won the title and then got us promoted again. And now I've beat the Premier League. So, like I say, like, 10% of the time it works 100% of the time. It's just the other 90% not so good. But it's a funny old case, and
absolutely. Right, let's move on to other things. So I want to speak to Ash first on this. So 3 games in Ash. First international break is now upon us. So we haven't got a game to look forward to this weekend, but let's do a little bit of a 3-game review, if you like, in terms of, I want to know your thoughts on how the season's actually started. I know me and Anil have spoken and Josh has spoken about on his channel and you've probably spoken about on Dan's channel, but yeah, what have you made to the start of the season so far?
To be honest, I'm not looking at it too negatively. We've been in every game we've played this season. Obviously Fulham, I think Fulham were probably the team that sort of grabbed hold of us the most, I'd say, out of the 3 so far when we were away from home. But Cooper's record at Forest away from home was never good. But to be honest with you, I think we've been in every game. We're showing glimpses, 20, 30-minute spells where we're actually even sometimes controlling the game and having a go at teams. I'm enjoying watching us more this season than the season when we got relegated. I feel like the players are putting a shift in and playing for the badge. So I'm not going to be too negative yet. This what we've found out yesterday is a massive win and can boost morale at any club. So I think that's going to have a great effect. And let's just play the teams in and around us, your Palaces, your Bournemouths, Wolves, and then we'll see how we're faring this season. We've played 3 solid teams. You know, Fulham always recruit well. You've got Spurs, who are one of the big 6 technically, and then Villa, who've got massive ambition at the minute. And I think we've really held our own. So I'm not going to get on Cooper's back just yet. If we start losing games in and around us, then I think the club will have a decision to make, because I think this that's happened yesterday naturally puts more pressure on Cooper now anyway. I think he would have been given a lot more time if it was just sort of go and do your best. We're probably going to be on minus 10 points anyway, and, you know, have a go. But now it's not like that. We've got just as much chance as anybody of staying up, so we've got to take it seriously.
Hey Ash, saying, like, Jurgen Klopp is available. Hashtag.
Yeah, we'll get him in. We'll take him if we have to, eh?
Yeah, if we have to. Josh, talk to me. I mean, you know, Ash mentioned there about Cooper, and you know he's going to get behind him for now and all of that. How long do you think he has before, you know, like let's say after 10 games, if we're in the bottom 3, would you pull the trigger, or do you think if the performances and the games are still close, that the board will keep hold of him for a bit longer?
If you're saying bottom 3, 18th with a few wins, I'd keep him. But you know, for 20th, we're still 1. I think you've got to look at it. But I think for the season so far, the signs have been there. Just like we said, we played 3 tough teams. I think we'll get better signs after the international break. Obviously, Palace, Everton to come, big games. But honestly, I think we should have no worries about the manager right now. Obviously, you know, some people would say the style of play could be better, but for me, you know, it's keeping us in games, and you know, if we can be a bit be more clinical, maybe play an attacking midfielder, we could have some more joy. So yeah, I think Cooper's on all right so far. Obviously, the results haven't been there, but performances have been promising.
Anil, season so far, talk to me.
Yeah, I think it's got quite a lot better. I think I'm trying to look at it objectively and look at the stats, and also try and understand from like a tactical point of view, like try and think actually why is the manager doing this? Because most of the time they're not just complete idiots, right? There is something that they're looking to achieve, and what are those flaws? So first game against Spurs, like the first half, we just weren't in it at all. And what I mean by that is if you look at like our expected goals, it was like 0.01. You're not getting close. It's like if it was a boxing match, they would have thrown in the towel right away, call it over in that first half. But we come out the second half, and that was great. That's actually probably the best we've been all season, is in that second half against Spurs. We got at them. So second game, I think Fulham were actually the best out of all the teams that we played, funnily enough. But if you look at the overall stats at the end, possession-wise, it was quite close. It was like 54 to 46%. Maybe they backed off after away, right? And in that game, towards the end, we introduced Ollie Skip. You know, Buonanote's got a bit more game time, so it's closer. Third game, we do end up losing, a bit unluckily in my opinion. But if you look at it, we had more possession. If you always look at all 3 games, our tackling stats are really good. I think we're like 3rd highest in the league or something right now for tackling. So for sure, that's all the positives. The negatives is the threat that we're creating. I think we're like the 2nd lowest for XG in the league right now. So that's clearly the thing that you've got to fix. But the thing is that like if you're a manager, do you want to try and fix everything all at once, or do you try and think one thing at a time, get it working, and then move on to the next one? So I think like against Villa, which is a good team, like would you have taken the draw at the start of the day? Probably most people would. So if I think about it that way, going for like a setup that's going to be like hard tackling, aggressive, keep in the game, win the ball, get possession, start getting into the game and play. And then because you've only got your creative player signed the day before, you bring him on with like half an hour to go and hope he Jesus is something. It might sound dumb, but it's sort of like a legitimate tactic. So I've seen improvement for us so far, and was spot on when he said we've looked competitive. I think that's the key thing. If it was like, it just was like, oh my God, this is just like, you know, throw it in already. So other than that Spurs up, we fixed that. So as Josh says, the next thing is we've got to start being more creative. But I think luckily we signed someone to really fix it. I think that was the key position. I know people wanted the striker, but I actually think more important than the striker was the creative player, because I think we do have enough talent. You know, you don't need to get a 20-goal season striker if you want to stay up, right? That's if you want to go for top 5. A 10-goal striker will probably do it. So long-winded answer, but I'm actually quite positive. But what I will say is, I don't know if you've seen our next fixtures, but it's Palace, Everton, right? Then we've got Arsenal, forget that one. But then we've got Bournemouth, Southampton, your mate Wolfie with Forest, and then Ipswich Town. And then that will take us to 10 games. So
Wow.
I think after 10 games, to kind of answer the other question, that would be a really good indication of where we are. And I think though it could be, you're right, Cooper might be in trouble just because even if we actually played quite well and we were a bit unlucky, I mentioned Klopp, but Potter's available. Benfica just sacked Roger Schmidt, who did a good job at PSV. We played them in Europe a few, people like that would love a crack in the Premier League. So, the club might just be thinking, well, we can go for it now. We'll have to see where we are. But I think we've got a really good chance. And I don't think we'll really know even ourselves because we've basically played, maybe Fulham was disappointing because I was thinking that the golfing class looks a bit too much for me. I don't know if you guys would agree. Like they finished 13th. So even though they won, if it was like, yeah, they won, but they got a bit lucky, I would feel better of it. But I don't think you can call that win a lucky win. I think they well deserved it. And if we hadn't scored up that corner, would we have scored? I'm not sure.
No.
But I think things are turning, and I do like the look of some of our signings. And that Buonanotte, very impressed for a 19-year-old. And given that he's just playing on loan, like he was probably giving it the big one after he scored.
Yeah.
I love seeing a bit of the old passion. I'm a passion merchant. What can I say?
Yeah, absolutely. Just wanted to, for some reason, it's not letting me select any comments to bring up for some reason. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, Ant said, go get Corberan if Cooper does. Oh, now they're coming. Do you think in the same way it could boost morale for us, it could lower it for Everton and Forest? So there's a question I want to ask actually. Do you think that this PSR news will actually now give the players a boost to think, hold on a sec, we might not need 45 points. Maybe we'll only need 35 points to stay. Because obviously before we would have needed, the usual plus an extra 5 to 10 points. So, Ash, do you think this might give them a bit of a boost? I mean, they've been committed anyway. I'm not sure there is much more to give. But if there is, then will this boost them?
1,000,000%. They've got the fire in the belly now. They're on a level playing field, and I think it's going to get all the heads up. Like we really can stick and have a go at this season now. And like Ant's comment says, it's with Everton and Forest. Of course, it's going to lower their heads. I mean, Forest, to be honest, I think they're holding their own. I can't see them being in much trouble, to be honest with you. I know a lot of people at the start of the season said there might be, but I think they've looked all right, to be fair. But Everton, they're stinking, aren't they? Let's be honest. and what's that game that they lost to Bournemouth at home? If that didn't put the Reds down enough, then this has certainly done it with the news yesterday. So they're in the gutters at the minute with morale and what's potentially going to be happening in the league. Because if I'm right, are they potentially facing another penalty as well? Points deduction. So, and obviously they've not got good lawyers, so they're in trouble.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Nick DeMarco's phone is ringing right now. He's not going to have any rest. Josh, what teams are you looking at as like the teams to be below us? Because like I look at Southampton as a no-brainer. I think they will go down. And then I'm not sure after that because Ipswich will have that kind of typical, newly promoted. And I know Southampton are newly promoted, but us and Southampton aren't really newly promoted, if you get what I mean, whereas Ipswich are, and they'll have that in them. Maybe that gives them an extra 5-10%. And Everton look terrible, but Everton sack the manager and suddenly they get a few wins. It happens every year. So what teams do you think Leicester should be looking at as the ones to beat this season?
It's tough. I think the teams around us, obviously, who came up's the easy answer. Ipswich, you want to be taking 6 points off them and Southampton. But it's tough. Obviously, Palace are down there at the bottom. Everyone predicted them to do all right this season. I think Wolves are down there as well. I can't really see them being, I think they'll be bottom half, but not towards the towards the bottom. So yeah, it's tough. I think in terms of picking points up, anyone in the bottom half at home, teams like Brentford, your Wolves, your Palace, your Forest, them type of teams, you want to be targeting them at home. And if you could pick up the odd point away from home against teams like Southampton, Ipswich, Everton, I think that puts us in good stead. So yeah, I think it's quite early to call, but you've got to be taking maximum, well, not maximum, as many points as possible over Southampton and Ipswich, and if you can do that, you're almost halfway there, I think.
Yeah, and Neil, obviously, a couple of people there mentioned Forest. I agree with Ash. They look okay. They look better, and I feel like they've had 2 seasons of chaos with all the players they brought in, and maybe now they're just gelling a little bit and settling down, and maybe this is their season to actually make their way up the table a bit more.
it's not just that, but they've got Nuno in charge, and Nuno doesn't necessarily play the most exciting football, but is very solid. He basically just plays on the counter attack. And I don't know if you saw, but they played Southampton. Southampton had something like 73% possession, but they had 4 shots the entire game, and Forest had 26. And they only won 1-0, but it was like, you know, it was the Russell Martin horseshoe, if you've ever seen it, in terms of passing, versus just a team that knows where it's at. And Nuno's done it before with Wolves when Wolves got promoted. You remember they finished for Europe the first season. So I think that's the ace in the hole, is that it's funny, their squad doesn't look that brilliant, but funny enough, you know, it's more about the overall, the sum of the parts. So I would be surprised, but that said, I will say that like their opening fixtures have been what? Bournemouth, Wolves, someone else, that they haven't been the most competitive. Whereas Ipswich, you know, they've had Liverpool and Man City. So they've only really had one game, which was Fulham, and we played Fulham, and they drew, we lost, but they played at home. The stats, it was a pretty even game, marginally more towards Fulham's side. So it's still a bit early to say. I think, yeah, you're looking for a team from last year to maybe drop. And so, yeah, I think at the start of the season, a lot of people did identify Forest because they're a bit lucky to go. And of course, it is a bit worrying that we've got Forest's old manager who was exited, although they didn't really get that many more points when Nuno came in. The other ones with Everton are definitely the ones that you know, you mentioned about the whole morale thing. Now it's funny because that game at the weekend, they should have like won it 4-0 or something like that. But the fact that they've somehow managed to lose, I mean, that's like us against Spurs, if you remember, like that. And you know, that was one of those games as well that you just know that Rodgers' time, if it's not immediately up, you're past the peak by that sort of point. And even Dyche, for how good Dyche is, Dyche did get sacked by Burnley one season, you might remember, when they actually went down. It's like even someone as good as he could. Don't get me wrong, people like David Moyes waiting in the wings as well. I will be shocked if he's not back in the Premier League this season as a relegation specialist for someone. He could even be Leicester manager. I wouldn't, but I could understand why you would, to be fair. So, you know, you can cross that bridge when it comes. So that's Wolves, maybe. Brentford, I thought might as well, but I think they've started reasonably well, although they have lost Tony. And that's a big one, I think, because I think Brentford with Tony, they stay up. Brentford without Tony, they might still stay up, but, you know, guaranteed bagsman, really.
I mean, if Leicester don't go down, there's going to be some clubs looking to sue us like we tried to do to Everton. I think they won't be happy. All right, the last topic I want to get onto is kind of looking ahead a little bit to next weekend or the weekend after, whatever. And I feel like on social media, it was like a riot when I suggested dropping Harry Winks. But I don't want to talk about that one. But I want to talk about another one. Now, it won't actually be the Palace game. It'll be the Everton game that it could happen. It's Edouard. Now, I want to know, I'll start with you, Ash. Do you think Edouard comes straight into this team and starts ahead of Jamie Vardy? Because I've got a feeling it might happen.
You know what? It's funny you should say that, Locks. I mean, it begs the question, doesn't it? Has he been brought in just to be the legs once Vardy's have gone after 65 minutes? That's my initial thought. But if it's the Edouard that we've seen at Celtic under Rodgers, then get him in because he was fantastic. But if it's the Edouard we've seen for Palace, he didn't really set any fires, did he? So, but you never know what's going on with managers and styles of play and everything like that. It's a new start for him. So if he gets some game time and starts netting, he could quite easily become the starting number 9 with Vardy getting on and things like that. I think we're all in agreement it might be Vard's last season. And he picks up knocks now. He's a bit older and stuff quite easily. So yeah, he probably could grow into the starting number 9. Yeah.
Josh, Ash mentioned there that it could be Edouard being the impact, if you like, but do you think it could be the other way around? Do you think Vardy could be saved for being that impact player and Edouard starts games? Again, I know it's not going to be Palace because he's I'm going to say loan tied. I don't think that's the word for it, but he can't play against Palace. But do you think he could be the one to start and Vardy is an impact?
Oh, it's tough. I think if Edouard came in a bit earlier, it seemed to me a bit like a rush signing. If he came earlier, potentially I'd say yes. I think he'll definitely I think he'll get lots of minutes. Do I think it's tough because I think it all depends. Could I even play up top if you want to play Mavididi out wide? There's options now, which is only a good thing. We've got certain Patson Daka who's going to be back in a couple of months, so you never know. I think in terms of Edouard, look, he did well at Celtic. There's a reason why Leicester wanted to sign him. Obviously, it hasn't really worked out at Palace, but I think there still is a player there. So, if he can settle, get in the right environment, obviously it's only a loan, but if he can get a few goals and start off well, I don't see there's no reason why he can't thrive with Leicester and maybe bag them 10 goals, which just as Anil said, it's probably going to be enough for Leicester this season in terms of output from a striker. So I'm picturing the Fatawu cross to Edouard on the head or something. Obviously, he's quite physical, so that could be a threat. And yeah, I think definitely so. Yeah, I think it's still too early to judge, but I think the options up front is only a positive now.
Yeah, over to you, Anil. What are you thinking?
Well, it's funny, us content creators, because it's the international break, you have to make content that isn't about the next match that's coming up. So funnily enough, I've been working on a video which is like what happened the last time we got promoted, which is 14-15 season. And what happened then is we were bottom of the table for a very long time. And then all of a sudden we started picking up form. But one of the reasons we started picking up form is there was a change in mentality. And the change in mentality was before we were competing in games, but we weren't trying to win them. We were trying to nick points here and there. Sound familiar? And then how we turned it around is hang on a minute, how did we win the championship? We won the championship by smashing teams, by being physical, by getting in their faces and trying to win the fight and accept that we're going to take some punches, but we're going to try and do more damage than they can do against us. And then we started winning games. So this, I think, will answer the question. It depends on the way that Cooper wants to go. Because I think even though Vardy is probably better as an impact player, Vardy's got a lot of aggression in a good way, right? How many times in the King Power he's done a slide tackle. All it does is he wins the throw in for Leicester high up the field. You don't even really make a chance for it, but the crowd's like, yeah, come on. Everyone's getting on their feet. The team moves up the pitch. All of a sudden, we're showing the initiative. And I think that, especially with this run of games that we've got, whether or not he'll do it, I don't know. But I would rather us be more aggressive and try and win it. And even who cares, even if we can see the goal early, you're trying to actually win the game. So I think in that regard, I think Edouard can definitely do a job. He might turn out to be a good player, but Vardy can kind of lead the line in that respect. And I think that could be important. So even though I think Vardy would be a better finisher, maybe even if it's just that first half an hour that he sets the tone, that could be important, because in recent games that Vardy doesn't even touch the ball for the first half, right? Maybe that's where we're going wrong. I'd be happy with either. I actually think just on a pure technical level, he's better against the tired defense, but maybe you need Vardy to be the leader on the pitch to actually just, like I say, just be way more aggressive this season. It's not about passing teams to death, really. It's just about who wants it more. That's the one encouraging thing for me, is that I think even though maybe the results haven't been that good, I've still seen, again, in the Villa game, we won more 50-50s than they did and second contacts. Yeah. That's actually, in my opinion, what will determine if the team stays up or not. Because when we went down last time round, we had great players, Yuri Tillemans, James Maddison, Harvey Barnes. These players are playing well for teams that are in around the top 5 battle. But when Yuri Tillemans can't be bothered to make a tackle, or James Maddison's too much in the flair mode and not in I need to get stuck in mode, you're not going to do things. So yeah, I think maybe you should start him in this run of games just to get the aggression and set the tone, and then maybe towards the end of the season he can start being rested a little bit.
Lovely stuff. Thanks for that. All right then. Well, that kind of sums up or ends off the first episode of Foxes Den, if you like. Thanks to everyone in the comments who's left a comment. If you can please as well hit the like button and subscribe to myself, Anil at For Fox's Sake, and also Josh Sportser. Ash, you don't have a YouTube channel? You should get one, man. You should make one. Come on.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I just come on and like talking Leicester City and football, but I'll look into it. I work on computers enough in the day, so
yeah, fair enough. That's fair enough. Josh, what's going on over on your channel over the next kind of week or so? What have you got to talk about? Because I don't think there's much, but I'm sure you'll find something.
No, I was going to say not too much at all, really. I'll try and find something. I think I'll do a few in-depths on our new signings, and obviously look ahead to that Palace game, because I think that game is just so important, really. It feels like 6 points already. It's 4 games in, it's crazy. But I just think if Leicester can get off the mark, it'd be big. But yeah, just a few bits around that, and then obviously back to the usual stuff when the international break is finally over. I don't know why there's 3 games in, but yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, anytime, mate. Anil, what's going on with you over the next few days?
like the nostalgic bastard that I am, going to be going down memory lane, but trying to see what lessons we can learn and how it can be taken forward into this season. So I've given you a little bit of a sneak preview there, but we're looking at the 14-15 season and how we turn disaster into a masterclass.
Good stuff. Lovely stuff. Ash, I know you haven't got obviously the YouTube channel, but what's your Twitter? Remind me your Twitter if people want to go over and see.
It's just that like at Ash_Oceans or something like that. Yeah.
I've tagged him. If you follow me on Twitter, you can. I've tagged Ash anyway. So, all right, lads. Well, thank you. Thanks so much for joining me. Hope to see you again. I'll drop you all a message next week and see if you're up for it again. But yeah, thanks for watching, everyone, and thanks to the lads as well for joining me. Cheers, all. Bye bye.
Cheers.